The first time I saw him standing in my living room, I genuinely thought I had walked into the wrong house. Not because the furniture was different, not because something had been moved, but because the man standing beside my wife looked at me like I didn't belong there. Like I was the stranger. Like I was the one who had just walked into someone else's life. And the worst part, my wife didn't correct him. My name is Daniel Carter. I'm 36 years old. I live in a quiet suburban neighborhood outside Denver, Colorado, the kind of place where kids ride bikes after school and neighbors wave when you pull into your driveway. For 8 years, that house had been my safe place. Mine and my wife's. Or at least, that's what I thought. I worked long hours as a mechanical engineer for an aerospace contractor. The job paid well, but it was demanding. Deadlines, late nights, occasional travel. Still, every day when I pulled into the driveway, I told myself it was worth it. Because inside that house was Emily. My wife. The woman I thought I'd spend the rest of my life with. Emily was beautiful in that effortless kind of way. Long dark hair, bright eyes, the kind of smile that made strangers instantly comfortable. We met 10 years ago at a coffee shop near the University of Colorado. I spilled my drink all over her laptop. I thought she was going to scream at me. Instead, she laughed. That laugh was the first thing I ever loved about her. For years, things felt perfect. We traveled, bought the house together, adopted a golden retriever named Max. I trusted her completely. Which is why the moment that shattered everything didn't just hurt. It rewired my entire understanding of reality. That evening started like any other. It was late October, cold air, leaves scattered across the driveway. I just finished a brutal 12-hour day dealing with a production delay at work. All I wanted was a hot shower and dinner. As I parked the car, something felt off. There was a black pickup truck in the driveway. Not a neighbor's car. Not a delivery truck. A huge lifted Ford Raptor, matte black, aggressive tires. The kind of truck that screamed, "Look at me." I frowned. Emily hadn't mentioned having anyone over. But I shrugged it off. Maybe a friend. Maybe a contractor. When I opened the front door, Max came running like usual, tail wagging wildly. "Hey, buddy," I muttered, scratching behind his ears. Then I heard voices. A man's voice. Deep, confident. Laughing. Coming from the living room. My stomach tightened slightly. I stepped inside. And that's when I saw them. Emily was sitting on the couch. But she wasn't alone. A tall guy was leaning casually against the wall near the fireplace. Probably 6'3", broad shoulders, thick beard trimmed perfectly, tattoos running down his forearms. Gym built. The kind of guy who looked like he lived inside a protein shake commercial. He was holding a beer. My beer. From the fridge I bought. Standing in the house I paid the mortgage on. Next to my wife. They both looked up when I walked in. Emily's face went pale for half a second. Then she forced a smile. "Oh, hey, Daniel, you're home early." Early? It was 6:30 p.m. I looked at the guy. He didn't move. Didn't introduce himself. Didn't even look slightly uncomfortable. Instead, he slowly took a sip of the beer while staring directly at me. Then he smirked. Not a friendly smile. Not an awkward grin. A smirk. The kind of expression someone gives when they've already won. My chest tightened. I set my keys on the counter slowly. "Emily," I said carefully, "who is this?" Before she could answer, the guy pushed himself off the wall and walked toward me. Like he owned the place. He stopped about 3 feet away and looked me up and down. Like he was evaluating me. Judging me. Then he stuck out his hand. "Jake," he said casually, "nice place you got here." I didn't shake his hand. Something in my gut was screaming that something was wrong. Very wrong. I looked back at Emily. She avoided my eyes. "Jake is a friend," she said. Friend. The word hung in the air like a bad joke. I looked between them. Something about the way they were standing, the tension, the awkwardness. My brain started connecting dots I didn't want to connect. Okay, I said slowly. And why is your friend drinking my beer in my living room? Jake chuckled softly. Not offended. Amused. Relax, man, he said. It's just a beer. The way he said man felt like a slap. I stared at him. You need to leave. Emily suddenly stood up. Daniel. I held up my hand. No, seriously. I don't know who this guy is, but he needs to get the hell out of our house. Jake looked at Emily. Then back at me. That smirk grew wider. And that's when he said the sentence that made my entire world stop. Your house, he said calmly. He laughed. A slow, arrogant laugh. Then he nodded toward Emily. Funny, because Emily told me this place was basically hers. Silence filled the room. I turned to my wife. She looked terrified now. But she still didn't say anything. And that was the moment a cold realization began forming in my chest. The kind that creeps in slowly, before it detonates your entire life. I looked back at Jake. Get out, I said quietly. He didn't move. Instead, he leaned closer to me and lowered his voice slightly. You should really calm down, he said. Then he looked toward Emily again. And what he said next was the moment my marriage officially died. Emily, he said casually. Is this the guy you were telling me about? He tilted his head toward me like I was some kind of disappointing product. Then he delivered the final line with a cruel smile. The beta husband. For a second, I honestly thought I had misheard him. The word beta hung in the air like the echo of a gunshot. My brain refused to process it. Beta husband. Like I was some kind of joke. Like I was a weak little side character in my own life. I slowly turned my head toward Emily. She looked like she wanted the floor to open and swallow her whole. But she still didn't deny it. That silence hit harder than anything Jake had said. My voice came out quiet. Too quiet. Emily, what is he talking about? She swallowed. Her fingers twisted nervously together like a child caught lying. Daniel, it's not what you think. Jake snorted behind me. Yeah, he said lazily, taking another sip of my beer. It usually is. I ignored him. My eyes stayed locked on my wife. Then explain it. Her lips parted, then closed again. For 8 years, I had known every expression on her face. Every tiny shift in her voice. And right now, I saw something I had never seen before. Guilt. Real guilt. My stomach dropped. Jake walked back toward the couch and sat down like he was settling in for a movie. He spread his arms across the back of the couch, right behind Emily. She didn't move away. That small detail felt like someone driving a knife between my ribs. You know what, Jake said casually, this is awkward. I thought you said he'd still be at work for a few more hours. Emily snapped her head toward him. Jake, stop. But he just shrugged. What? I'm just being honest. He looked at me again. That same arrogant smirk on his face. You look like a smart guy, Daniel. Engineer, right? My chest tightened. How do you know that? Jake nodded toward Emily. She talks about you. That made my skin crawl. What exactly does she say? I asked. Jake leaned forward slightly, resting his elbows on his knees. He looked like he was genuinely enjoying this. Mostly that you're a nice guy. Nice guy. The way he said it sounded like an insult. Emily stood up suddenly. Okay, this has gone far enough. Her voice was shaky now. She turned to me. Daniel, can we talk, alone? Jake laughed again. Oh, come on, Em, don't start pretending now. The nickname Em made my jaw clench. I looked at her. Pretending. Her face went pale. Jake leaned back comfortably. You didn't tell him? He asked with fake surprise. Emily whispered through her teeth. Jake, shut up. He raised his hands in mock surrender. Hey, I thought honesty was important in marriages. The sarcasm in his voice made my fists tighten. Tell me what? I asked. Emily looked at me. And in that moment, I realized something terrifying. She wasn't just nervous. She was cornered. Like someone who had been hiding something for a long time and suddenly had nowhere left to run. Daniel, she started softly. But Jake interrupted. You know what, he said, standing up again. Let's skip the awkward part. He walked over and stood beside her. Too close. Way too close. Your wife and I have been seeing each other. The room went silent. The words echoed in my head. Seeing each other. My brain tried to reject the meaning. Like it was some kind of glitch. Emily shook her head quickly. It's not like that. Jake raised an eyebrow. Really? She looked like she might cry. But the damage was already done. I felt strangely calm. Numb. Emily, I said slowly, how long? She hesitated. That hesitation told me everything. Emily, I repeated. Her voice cracked. 3 months. 3 months. 90 days. 90 days of lies. 90 days of kissing me goodbye in the morning. 90 days of sleeping in the same bed. My chest tightened so hard, I had to breathe slowly to keep from losing control. Jake watched me like someone observing a science experiment. Curious. Amused. You're taking it better than I expected, he said. I looked at him. Get out. He tilted his head. But Emily invited me. That sentence made something inside my head snap slightly. I don't care who invited you. Emily suddenly stepped between us. Daniel, please don't do anything stupid. Stupid. I stared at her. Stupid. Jake chuckled again. You gotta admit, man, this situation is kind of funny. Funny. I took a step closer to him. My voice dropped. Leave. For the first time, Jake studied my face more carefully. Maybe he saw something in my eyes. But instead of backing down, he smiled wider. You know what Emily told me about you, he said. I didn't answer. She said you're predictable. He gestured vaguely around the room. Work, bills, responsibilities, the safe guy. Emily whispered urgently. Jake, stop. But he kept going. She said being married to you feels like living in a spreadsheet. Every word felt like gasoline on a fire building in my chest. She said she wanted to feel alive again. Emily's eyes filled with tears. Daniel, please. Jake leaned closer to me. And that's where I came in. Silence. The air felt heavy, like a storm about to explode. I looked at my wife, the woman I had trusted more than anyone in the world. Did you say that? Her silence answered me. Jake clapped his hands lightly. Well, this has been educational. Then he grabbed his jacket from the chair. Relax, man, I'll head out. He walked toward the door slowly. Then he stopped beside me and whispered just loud enough for me to hear. Don't worry. He smirked again. She still says you're a good provider. Then he opened the door and walked outside. The sound of the truck engine starting echoed through the quiet street. I stood there, frozen. Emily's voice trembled behind me. Daniel, I'm so sorry. I turned around slowly. Looked at her. Really looked at her. And for the first time in 10 years, I didn't recognize the woman standing in front of me. My voice came out cold. Pack a bag. Her eyes widened. Daniel. Pack a bag, I repeated. Tonight. Because in that moment, I realized something terrifying. Jake might have been the man sleeping with my wife. But he wasn't the real problem. The real problem was the revenge slowly starting to grow in my mind. Emily stared at me like she didn't understand the words that had just come out of my mouth. Pack a bag, she repeated softly. I didn't raise my voice. I didn't yell. Somehow, I was calmer than I'd ever been in my life. Yes. The silence in the room felt heavy. Max padded over and sat beside me, looking between us like even the dog could sense something was terribly wrong. Emily's voice trembled. You're kicking me out. I let out a slow breath. I'm giving you the chance to leave before I do something we both regret. Her eyes widened slightly. You're threatening me now. That question almost made me laugh. Threatening her? After what I had just walked into. But I wasn't laughing. Inside my chest, Something cold and calculating had begun forming. A part of me I didn't even know existed. "Emily," I said quietly, "you brought another man into our house." "Our house?" She wiped tears from her cheeks. "It's not like that." The words sounded weak. Even she didn't believe them. "You slept with him," I said flatly. She flinched. That tiny reaction confirmed everything. My stomach twisted, but the anger pushed the pain down. "I didn't mean for it to happen," she whispered. "That's how it usually works," I replied. She looked desperate now. "Daniel, please just listen to me." I folded my arms. "You've got 5 minutes." Her shoulders sagged. She looked toward the couch where Jake had been sitting. Like she wished he were still there to save her from this conversation. That realization hurt more than I expected. Finally she spoke. "I felt lonely." The word echoed in the room. I stared at her. "Lonely?" "You're always working," she said quickly. "You're gone 12 hours a day sometimes." "I was providing for us." "I didn't need all that," she said, her voice cracking. "I needed you." Something in my chest twisted. For a brief moment, doubt crept in. Had I been gone too much? Had I missed something? But then I remembered Jake sitting on my couch, drinking my beer, smirking at me like I was a joke. And the doubt burned away instantly. "So instead of talking to me," I said slowly, "you started sleeping with some gym bro who calls me a beta." Emily covered her face. It wasn't supposed to go this far. That sentence made my blood run cold. How far did it go? She hesitated again. That hesitation was becoming a pattern. "Emily." Her voice dropped to a whisper. "I don't know." The words echoed like a bomb going off. "You do know." "I mean emotionally," she said quickly. "Jake is just different." I laughed. It wasn't a happy sound. "Different." She looked ashamed. "He's confident," she admitted. "And I'm not." That's not what I meant. But it was exactly what she meant. I walked to the kitchen and poured myself a glass of water. My hands were steady. Too steady. Almost mechanical. Behind me, Emily's voice trembled again. "I never stopped loving you." I turned slowly. "Emily, you cheated on me." "I know." "You brought him into our house." Tears streamed down her face. "I know." "You let him sit on our couch like he owned the place." Her voice broke. "I'm sorry." I studied her carefully. For the first time, I wasn't seeing my wife. I was seeing a stranger who had been living with me for years. And something else clicked in my mind. Jake's words earlier. "Your wife and I have been seeing each other." 3 months. But people like Jake don't just magically appear. "How did you meet him?" I asked. Emily hesitated again. That answer already told me I wouldn't like the truth. "At the gym." "Of course." I nodded slowly. "Let me guess, personal trainer." Her silence confirmed it. I almost smiled. The stereotype was so perfect, it was almost insulting. "He started talking to me," she said quietly. "At first it was just conversation. And then." She looked down. One thing led to another. The classic excuse. One thing led to another. Like affairs just magically happen. Like they slip and fall into someone else's bed. My voice became colder. "Did you sleep with him here?" Her head snapped up. "No." The answer came too fast. Too defensive. Which meant. "Where?" Emily swallowed. "His place." "Of course." Jake probably had some overpriced downtown apartment filled with dumbbells and protein powder. "Do you love him?" I asked. Her eyes widened. "No." But she didn't sound convincing. Not even a little. I walked over to the front window and looked outside. Jake's truck was gone. The street looked normal. Peaceful. Like nothing had happened. Like my life hadn't just detonated 30 minutes ago. Behind me, Emily whispered something. "Daniel, please don't give up on us." "Us." The word sounded foreign now. You should have thought about that before today. I made a mistake. I turned back toward her. A mistake is forgetting an anniversary. Her shoulders shook. This was a choice. She collapsed onto the couch, crying openly now. Please, we can fix this. Fix this. The phrase echoed in my head. And that's when I realized something important. Emily thought she still had power here. She thought this was a fight she could talk her way out of. But she didn't understand something yet. Something Jake also didn't understand. The calm I felt right now wasn't forgiveness. It was strategy. Because the truth was, I wasn't planning to scream. I wasn't planning to fight. And I definitely wasn't planning to beg. No. Something much colder had taken root in my mind. A plan. A plan that would make Jake's arrogant smirk disappear forever. And make Emily realize exactly what she had thrown away. I walked toward the stairs slowly. Daniel, she whispered. I paused. Pack a bag, I repeated without turning around. Because tomorrow morning. My voice became ice. We're going to start dealing with the consequences. Emily barely slept that night. I could hear her moving around downstairs for hours. Opening drawers. Closing them again. Crying quietly. Meanwhile, I sat in the dark bedroom staring at the ceiling. Not because I was heartbroken. Not anymore. That phase had already burned through my system. What replaced it was something far more dangerous. Clarity. By midnight, I had already pieced together most of the puzzle. And by 2:00 a.m., the plan was finished. At 6:30 the next morning, my alarm went off like usual. Routine. Structure. Control. I got up, showered, shaved, and put on a clean button-down shirt like it was a normal workday. When I walked downstairs, Emily was sitting at the kitchen table. Her eyes were swollen. A half-packed suitcase sat near the door. She looked up at me carefully, like someone watching a bomb that might explode at any second. Morning, she said weakly. I poured myself coffee. Black. The same way I'd been drinking it for 10 years. We need to talk, she said. I took a slow sip. We will. Her voice trembled. Daniel, I ended things with Jake last night. That made me pause for a fraction of a second. Then I continued drinking my coffee. Oh. I called him after he left, she said quickly. I told him it was over. Interesting. But not surprising. Jake didn't strike me as the relationship type anyway. Why? I asked. Her eyes filled with tears again. Because I don't want to lose my marriage. Marriage? The word felt hollow now. You should have thought about that before inviting him into our house. She flinched. I know. Silence filled the kitchen. Finally, she asked the question she'd been afraid to say all night. Are you divorcing me? I set my coffee down slowly. That depends. Her expression tightened. On what? On how honest you're willing to be today. She nodded immediately. I'll tell you anything. Good. Start with Jake. She looked confused. What about him? What does he do? She blinked. He's a trainer. Yes, I said calmly, but that's not his real job. Emily frowned. What do you mean? I studied her face, trying to decide whether she truly didn't know, or whether she was pretending. You said you met him at the gym, I continued. Yes. And then he just started talking to you. Yes. And 3 months later he's sleeping with married women in their houses. Her face twisted with discomfort. Daniel. I leaned back in my chair. Did he ever mention his business? She hesitated. Supplements. There it was. I nodded slowly. Protein powders, pre-workout, that kind of thing. Yeah, she said, he sells them online. I almost smiled. Not exactly. Emily stared at me. What are you talking about? I pulled my phone out of my pocket. Because the truth was, after Jake left last night, I didn't just sit there feeling sorry for myself. I did what engineers do best. I researched. I typed Jake's full name into every database I had access to. social media, business registries, even a few legal records. And what I found was fascinating. I turned the phone toward Emily. Recognize this. Her eyes widened. It was a screenshot. A government investigation notice. The logo at the top made her face go pale. The FDA. Below it was a company name. Jake S. Supplement Business. And a warning about illegal steroid distribution. Emily's lips parted. What is that? That, I said calmly, is Jake's real business. Her hands started shaking. No, that can't be right. Oh, it gets better. I scrolled down. Another article. This one from a local Denver news site. Federal investigation into underground performance-enhancing drug network. Guess whose name appeared in the report? Jake. Emily looked like she might throw up. I didn't know. I believe you. That part was actually true. Emily might be a cheater, but she wasn't smart enough to run a steroid trafficking ring. I thought he just sold supplements, she whispered. Most of the guys who look like him do, I said dryly. Silence filled the kitchen again. Finally, she asked the obvious question. Why are you showing me this? I leaned forward slightly. Because Jake made a mistake yesterday. Her eyebrows knit together. What mistake? He came into my house. She didn't understand yet. So I explained. When he did that, he introduced himself. Emily still looked confused. And I work for a company that deals with federal contractors. Her eyes slowly widened. Understanding finally dawned. Daniel. I gave her a calm smile. The funny thing about federal investigations, I continued, is that they move slowly. But when new witnesses or evidence appear, my voice lowered slightly. They move very fast. Emily's face went completely white. You wouldn't. I shrugged. He called me a beta. That's not a reason to ruin someone's life. I tilted my head. No, I said. But running an illegal steroid operation while sleeping with married clients' wives. I tapped the phone screen. That's a pretty good reason. Emily stood up suddenly. You're doing this out of revenge. Finally. She understood. I met her eyes. No, Emily. My voice was cold. I'm doing this because actions have consequences. Tears streamed down her face again. What about us? Us. That word again. I looked at the suitcase by the door. Then back at her. Jake destroyed his life the moment he walked into my house. My gaze hardened. And you destroyed this marriage the moment you opened the door for him. She broke down completely, sobbing into her hands. But for the first time since yesterday, I didn't feel anything. No anger. No sadness. Just the quiet satisfaction of knowing one thing. Jake's smirk was about to disappear forever. Emily left the house an hour later. She didn't scream. She didn't argue anymore. She just quietly rolled her suitcase down the driveway and got into her car. Before she closed the door, she looked at me one last time. Her eyes were red and swollen. Daniel, please don't do this. I stood on the porch with my arms crossed. The cold Denver morning air drifted through the neighborhood. Kids were waiting for school buses. Neighbors walked their dogs. Normal life. Like my world hadn't just been torn apart. What happens to Jake, I said calmly, has nothing to do with you anymore. Her lips trembled. It has everything to do with me. She paused. And what happens to us? I looked at her for a long moment. 10 years together. 8 years of marriage. Thousands of memories. Vacations. Birthdays. Late-night talks in bed. All of it felt like it belonged to another life now. There is no us, I said quietly. That was the moment she truly broke. Her shoulders collapsed. She nodded slowly, like someone accepting a death sentence. I understand. She got into the car. The engine started. And just like that, Emily Carter drove out of my life. But the story didn't end there. Because revenge isn't about rage. Rage is messy. Loud, uncontrolled, real revenge. Is quiet, precise, and patient. 3 days later, I made a phone call. Not to the police. Not to the FBI. I called a contact from a federal compliance team connected to my company's legal department. A man named Robert Klein. I simply told him I had information regarding an individual distributing illegal performance-enhancing drugs tied to an ongoing investigation. Robert asked a few questions. I answered them. Then I sent him everything. Jake's company website, his social media accounts, the business registry documents, even the license plate number from that matte black Raptor sitting in my driveway. When Robert saw the name, there was a long pause on the phone. Well, he finally said, "That's extremely helpful." I simply replied, glad I could assist. And then I hung up. 2 weeks passed. Life slowly settled into a strange new routine. The house felt quieter. Max followed me around more than usual. But the chaos in my head had disappeared. In its place was something I hadn't felt in a long time. Peace. Then one evening, while I was making dinner, my phone buzzed. Unknown number. I answered. Hello. A familiar voice exploded through the speaker. You son of a bitch. Jake. I leaned against the counter calmly. Hello, Jake. You reported me. His voice sounded completely different now. No confidence. No arrogance. Just pure panic. I don't know what you're talking about, I said casually. Don't play dumb. I could hear chaos in the background. Car doors slamming. Voices shouting. They raided my apartment this morning. I stayed silent. They took everything, my computers, my inventory, everything. For the first time since we met. Jake sounded terrified. They're charging me, man, he shouted. Federal charges. I took a slow breath. That sounds serious. You did this. Jake, I said calmly, I think you did that to yourself. There was heavy breathing on the other end. Then his voice dropped to a whisper. Please call them. I almost laughed. The mighty Alpha. Begging. You said I was a beta husband, I reminded him quietly. That was just trash talk. And bringing you into my house. Silence. Then he whispered the word I had been waiting to hear. I'm sorry. But the apology meant nothing now. I stared out the kitchen window at the dark street. Actions have consequences, I said. Then I hung up. A month later, I received divorce papers. Emily didn't fight anything. No arguments. No demands. She signed everything. The house stayed with me. We never spoke again. But about 3 months after everything happened, I saw her one last time. I was at a grocery store near my neighborhood. As I turned down an aisle, I almost didn't recognize her. Emily looked different. Thinner. Tired. Her bright confidence had vanished. She froze when she saw me. For a moment, neither of us spoke. Then she quietly said my name. Daniel. I nodded politely. How are you? Her eyes filled with tears almost instantly. I ruined everything. I didn't answer. She wiped her face. Jake was arrested, she said softly. I know. He was lying about everything. Again, not surprising. She looked down at the floor. I lost you for someone who never even cared about me. The regret in her voice was real. Painfully real. But it was too late. She looked up again. Do you ever miss me? I thought about the question honestly. About the woman I married. About the life we used to have. Then I realized something important. That woman didn't exist anymore. Maybe she never had. I miss who I thought you were, I said calmly. Emily broke into quiet sobs. I grabbed the item I needed from the shelf. Then I turned to leave. Before walking away, I paused for a second. Take care of yourself, Emily. And I walked out of the aisle. Out of the store. Out of the past. Because the truth is, Jake thought he was the alpha. Emily thought she wanted excitement. But in the end, the man they both underestimated was the one who walked away with everything. And the last thing I ever felt about either of them was nothing at all.